3 spine-chilling Stalker X stories revealed. Terrifying encounters with the haunted and sinister in the dim light of her kitchen. Sarah could feel the walls closing in around her. What once felt like a haven now seemed like a cage. A steady creak echoed from the hallway, setting her heart racing. Was that just the house settling? Or something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? Every creak, every snap of a twig outside felt like a warning and omen of something terrible about to strike. These started with Lily's drawing. "Mom, look! A rainbow!" Lily beamed, holding up a colorful crayon masterpiece. But the vibrant hue was upside down. Sarah chuckled nervously, brushing it off. Just kids being kids, she thought. But the unease nestled in her stomach didn't fade. It only grew stronger when she noticed her favorite necklace had gone missing. It was the last tangible memory of her mother, now lost in the chaos of their new life. Later that night, she tripped over the curb as she headed to her car, her pulse racing. The sudden chill in the air for that summer night sent shivers down her spine. But nothing could prepare her for what awaited under the flickering street lamp. Scratched deep into the paint of her car, jagged letters spelled leave. Panic knotted in her gut. Was this a warning, or an invitation to the depths of their growing dread? As days unfolded into restless nights, the quiet suburb morphed into a terrifying labyrinth. Mr. Jacobs, the charming handyman, had once put her at ease, offering help and warmth. Now he loomed in her thoughts like a shadow growing long in the fading light. Every smile exchanged felt heavy. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that he watched not out of concern, but out of something darker. Mismatched footprints appeared in her garden, fading under the morning dew. A faint scratching noise vibrated against the windowpanes as she tucked her daughter in at night. Each unsettling encounter heightened her fear. Watching her surveillance camera's feeds only amplified her dread. A dark figure lurked just out of sight, always there, always watching. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation coiled within her when the police dismissed her concerns. "You're just a worried mom," they said, leaving her to wonder about the safety of her daughter. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers of suspicious activity, but none would step forward to help. Could Sarah trust anyone? Behind their friendly facades, did they hide secrets too horrific to fathom? Finally, she confronted Mr. Jacobs. The once warm smile turned cold, his eyes narrowing in something close to amusement. His insinuations made her skin crawl. She left his house reeling. An unsettling thought forming: was he one of them? And why did she feel as though she had stumbled upon something veiled in darkness? As she pieced together the fragments of this nightmare, a family secret began to unravel, one that connected her deeply to the history of this neighborhood. A history stained with blood and fear. Just as the last threads began to connect, a chilling realization dawned. They weren't just neighbors. They were bound by something far more sinister than any casual relationship, a darkness waiting for its moment to strike. And now it seemed that moment was creeping closer. The following evening, shadows crept into Sarah's mind more than they crept into her house. Lily was asleep, but Sarah couldn't find comfort in the quiet. She juggled with the thought that isolation was safer. Each creak was a reminder of her paranoia. Each gust of wind a whisper taunting her to uncover the truth. While the world draped itself in twilight outside, Sarah turned on the surveillance feeds again, her heart thumping erratically against her ribs. Flickering images had become her only connection to reality. It felt wrong to keep watching, but the urge for answers trumped her fear. As she scanned the grainy footage, the dread rose in her throat like bile. There! A figure darted through the corner of the yard. It was swift, cloaked in darkness, the same figure. Her breath hitched and she leaned closer, eyes wide. It paused briefly in front of her house, and she felt the pressure of its gaze. Time froze as she searched for a familiar shape, desperate for any indication of who or what was watching her. Was it Mr. Jacobs? An uncomfortable thought slithered through her mind. She could feel it tangling with her desperation. She shook her head, trying to rid herself of the suspicion, but something cold nestled back in her gut. The next day, Sarah decided she had to confront her fears head-on. She gathered her courage and went for a walk. Maybe people would talk if she showed them she was brave. As she stepped outside, there it was again, the dread. The stench of lurking danger lurking under the summer sun. The neighborhood buzz was electric, tinged with watchfulness, and she could feel eyes upon her. Amid the uncomfortable small talk with neighbors, an offhand comment from Mrs. Parker stopped her dead. "You've got to be careful around here, Sarah. Nobody's who they say they are." Mrs. Parker's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "You never know what's in the dark." Lurking, the blood drained from Sarah's face. Confirmations of her worst nightmares? Too few people were listening, too few were willing to help. Cold sweat dripped from her brow as she hurried home. No. She could not let paranoia consume her. After an empty night and more unsettling surveillance, Sarah felt the claustrophobic weight of dread suffocate her. Suddenly, a loud thud from her back door jolted her from her thoughts. Heart racing, she crept towards the sound. The door shuddered as if something were pushing against it, wanting to break through. She pressed her ear against the wooden surface. The creeping silence was unbearable. Summoning every ounce of courage, she turned the doorknob and yanked it open. The yard lay still, moonlight stretching shadows into grotesque shapes. But there, at the edge of her garden, lay her missing necklace. The once cherished piece now lay tarnished, dirt and grime staining its surface, a gift from her mother, returned in a tainted offering. The message was clear. "You're not safe here." In an urgent rush of panic, she stumbled back, fear clawing at her throat. The air felt charged, electric, and heavy. She mustered a scream to call for help when she heard it. A low, pulsating hum echoing from the shadows beneath the trees, a hum she had never noticed before. Yet it felt like it had always been there, just out of earshot. As darkness enveloped her, she found herself caught in a chilling decision. Stay and confront whatever was lurking in her nightmares, or flee into the unknown. What was she missing that would finally uncover the truth? As she contemplated, a pair of gleaming eyes appeared from the darkness, locking onto hers, shattering her resolve. "Help me," a voice whispered on the wind. And just like that, a new wave of terror surged through her. Who or what had summoned her? Realizing she was far from alone, she backed away slowly. The darkness had teeth, and it was ready to bite. But was it too late to escape? Trembling, Sarah felt the strong pull of that whisper, an invisible thread tugging at her sanity. The weight of the night pressed down on her, and with every heartbeat, the shadows thickened, wrapping around her ankles like tendrils of smoke. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but curiosity, twisted and dangerous, anchored her to the spot. The hum intensified, growing louder, reverberating in her chest. Was it a plea for help? Or a lure, designed to pull her deeper into darkness? Desperation gnawed at her. The illuminated yard felt like a fragile bubble, teetering on the edge of shattering. She had to decide. Time slithered away as the eyes remained fixed on her, wide and unblinking. "Help me." The voice pressed again, a sweetness tinged with despair. But there was something off, an element that twisted the comfort of seeking aid into something sinister. Gathering every ounce of bravery, she called out into the void, "Who are you?" Her voice sounded small and quivering compared to the black abyss. Silence reigned, but the eyes blinked. She felt both drawn toward and repulsed by this presence. Then a shuffling sound broke through the stillness, echoing from behind the thick pines. Instinctively she moved back, her heart pounding in frantic rhythms. What was hiding there? The answer could be the unraveling of her worst nightmares or the revelation she desperately sought. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept across the yard, casting shadows in chaotic dance and pushing her toward the door. She stumbled backward, mumbling apologies to the shadows. Yet the call was louder now, very near. Panic clawed at her throat. "Please, I'm lost." Lost? That word struck a chord within her. It was the hollowed cry of so many nights she had spent alone in her own mind, sifting through memories locked away in the recesses of her heart. Was the darkness lost too? With shaky breaths, Sarah sent a silent plea into the night. "If you're lost, I can help." The eyes blinked just once, before the darkness shifted and slowly formed a shape, a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a woman, gaunt and pale, her features obscured, but her eyes shone brighter in the dark. The air thickened with tension. Fear slid into her bones, paralyzing her. "I need your help, Sarah. I've been trapped." The voice was filled with sorrow, wrapping around her like a serpent tightening its grip. Trapped? The word echoed in her mind. What kind of trap was she stepping into? But she couldn't help but feel a sick pull toward this ghostly figure. There was a connection, something unexplainable that coaxed her closer despite the raging storm inside her as she took a tentative step forward. The hairs on her neck prickled. She caught sight of a shadow lurking behind the woman, something darker and menacing. It moved and coiled, but whose presence was it? No. Sarah gasped, realizing she had started to walk toward danger. Just as she turned to flee, the ground beneath her seemed to shift. The world trembled, and she crashed against the doorframe. With an earth-shattering roar, a chilling wind ripped through her, as if the darkness itself protested. "No one can save you now," the woman hissed, eyes narrowing. Heart racing, Sarah stumbled backward into the house, slamming the door behind her. She pressed her back against it, shoving her breath back to calm the surge of panic. But then came the rhythmic thumping. A low chant echoed from beyond, promising danger and despair. Each pulse felt like the chanting of the ground beneath her feet. Was there really no escape? White-knuckled, Sarah gripped the doorknob, heart pounding wildly. Her mind raced. If she didn't figure this out, if she didn't confront the darkness, what lay on the other side of the door was not mere shadow, it was an abyss of secrets. A lurking terror waiting for her invitation. Sweat dripped down her spine as she felt the edges of her sanity fray. But before she could take a breath, she heard that same whisper again, now muffled. Find me. Could she unravel the mystery without losing herself in the process? Or would the darkness claim her as its own? The abyss was watching, and soon it would demand a price. The thumping grew louder, echoing through the house like a heartbeat. It drew closer, a steady rhythm that sent chills racing up and down Sarah's spine. Each thud reverberated through the wooden floors and rattled the windows, a pulse she couldn't escape. Her breath caught in her throat as she strained to listen. Fingers trembling against the doorknob, she leaned closer to the door. She thought she could hear whispers blending into the chant, indistinct murmurs that pricked her senses. The words swam just beyond comprehension, pulling at her mind, teasing with fragments of meaning that slipped away like water through her fingers. Find me echoed again, taunting, just above the pounding, with every instinct screaming at her to stay still. Sarah stepped away from the door and darted into the living room. The faded wallpaper peeled away, revealing phantom shadows crawling beneath the surface. The dank air hung heavy with the scent of mold and decay, each breath filling her with dread. What was her next move? The flickering candle on the table cast long shadows, making the corners of the room twist and waver. Her eyes darted to the hallway, where pale moonlight filtered in through a cracked window. It felt like a gateway, a passageway to whatever nightmare awaited her. Without thinking, she crept toward it, each footfall silent as if the house itself held its breath. As she approached the hallway, glancing back nervously, she heard the whispers rise like a crescendo, tinged with urgency. "Help me, please." What was past the door? What secrets lay behind those walls? The thought was intoxicating and horrifying. A thrill of fear washed over her as she gripped the door latch. In that moment, she felt as if she was slipping into an abyss, caught between worlds, the tangible life she knew and a darker reality beckoning her in. Determined, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was empty, but the air felt charged, alive. She glimpsed furniture shrouded in dust-covered sheets, faded photographs hanging crookedly on the walls, echoes of lives long extinguished. That's when she noticed it, a small flicker of movement. In the corner, a shadow seemed to linger too sharply, detached from the darkness that blanketed the rest of the room. The eyes, those haunting eyes, were back, now without the woman standing between them. They glimmered like dying stars, capturing her gaze like a moth drawn to flame. "Help me," the voice persisted, now filled with desperation. It morphed into a low, guttural growl, mixing the alluring plea with something sinister. Terror gripped her heart and a fierce instinct urged her to turn away. But she couldn't. It was like being ensnared in a web of intrigue. The darkness promising answers she craved. "Please, you have to find the truth," it echoed. "Truth?" She managed to whisper, her voice barely a breath. "The truth of my past, the truth of what I became." With that, she felt the warmth of the room drop. A chill wind streamed through her, an icy whisper that seemed to pull her toward the shadow, no longer just a lingering gaze, but now a tall, looming figure seemingly etched from the darkness itself. She pressed her lips together, her breath hitching. This feeling was foreign yet familiar, tugging at threads woven into her own past. But before she could draw back, the shadows erupted. They converged, swirling like a storm, crescendos of voices entwining with a howl of wind that cut through her sanity. "Find me!" The walls trembled and screamed, and she stumbled back, tearing herself from the grip of the paranormal storm. Crazed eyes met hers, wide with urgency. "The price must be paid, Sarah." Heart racing, she backed away, eyes darting from shadow to shadow, the truth coiling around her throat like a noose. The haunting pull of the past was deeper than she had feared. What connection did she have to this woman? There was no escape now. The darkness had awakened something inside her, and the urge to uncover what lay buried began to flare like a wildfire. But as she turned to flee, one last whisper pierced through the chaos, echoing through the depths of her mind. "Find me before they do." With a new horror rising inside her, she knew the wait was over. The true reckoning was coming. And the darkness wasn't just watching, it was already hunting. The room shuddered as Sarah stumbled back, heart racing like a drum in the silence that followed the chaos. Shadows stretched and warped around her, seemingly alive, licking at her with dark fingers as if to pull her down into their realm. She could still feel the weight of that icy wind, still hear the echo of "find me" shaking the very foundations of her mind. She had to escape, to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor, as if the house itself was forcing her to stay. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shape darting near the corner, retreating into full darkness. Each breath she took was heavy with anxiety, threatening to choke her. Her instinct screamed to flee, yet curiosity tugged at her like an unrelenting tide. What was happening? Why the connection? The whispers spiraled through her thoughts, offering fleeting hints of the woman's truth, a truth that felt unmistakably intertwined with her own. The more she tried to dismiss it, the stronger the connection grew, a spiraling descent into fear and fascination. "Sarah," the voice resonated softly now, piercing through the veil of terror. "You have to understand, I never wanted this." With a gulp of air, she pressed her palms against her eyes, willing the shadows away. "I don't want anything to do with this," she cried out, the loneliness of her conviction swallowed by the dark void. But the response came, a low hiss of laughter that sent chills down her spine. It slithered through her, wrapping around her heart in a vice grip. "Everything you've been looking for. It's right in front of you. My past, your past, they intertwine. You must witness what has been hidden." Gritting her teeth, Sarah opened her eyes once more, steeling herself against the tide of terrifying possibility. She took a cautious step into the room, the floorboards creaking beneath her. "Show me," she whispered, unsure if she was asking or demanding. A blinding flash of light erupted from the darkness, momentarily casting the room in a ghostly glow. As the light faded, Sarah gasped. A scene began to materialize before her. Pictures of a life once lived flickered in and out like a broken film reel. A child laughing in a sunlit field. A woman with kind eyes. Then suddenly a violent clash of shadows, screams echoing through the silence of the room. The spectral images danced before her eyes, a kaleidoscope of emotions that twisted her heart. The vision swirled into a vortex, dark and consuming, and in the center of it all, that same haunting figure of the woman. "You cannot turn back now. Understand what happened. The truth shall bind us." The voice reverberated, crashing into her consciousness like waves against a rocky shore. Panic seized her as she felt the earth beneath her feet tremble. The scene changed again, pulling her deeper. A forgotten memory perhaps, rooted in anguish and despair. She saw flashes of a blood-stained room, a reflection of horror that sent bile rising in her throat. And then there was darkness. Throbbing, muffled silence, punctuated only by her own frantic heartbeat, urging her to wake from this waking nightmare. Suddenly, Sarah felt a cold touch on her arm, a finger tracing down her skin with a paralyzing chill. She turned abruptly, but no one was there. Only shadows swirling menacingly, beckoning her in. The temperature dropped further, the house groaning like a living creature. "Time to choose," a voice whispered, disembodied yet surrounding her completely. "Choose." The word slipped from her lips like a prayer. What choice was left? What choice could she make? She knew she had to face whatever was lurking beneath the surface, whatever truths tangled her fate with that shadowy figure. The hunt was far from over. But suddenly the flickering candle extinguished, plunging her into darkness. The thumping returned, pounding through the walls with renewed fury. Her body went rigid, illuminating one undeniable truth: she wasn't alone anymore. "Find me," boomed a voice that shattered the silence, resonating with a fury that sent vibrations through her very being. Her heart raced wildly, fear consuming her. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, though deep down she feared she already knew. And just like that, the chorus of whispers crescendoed again, a mix of desperation and malice. "Everything. You have to find the truth, Sarah, or the darkness comes for you." A bead of sweat trickled down her brow. The true dread began settling like a thick blanket. There were no easy answers. The game wasn't just about finding the truth. It was about surviving. As the shadows twisted into the shape of horrors long forgotten, Sarah knew she had little time. She had to act fast, or she would be consumed by whatever malevolent spirit haunted this place. But what awaited her on the other side of that truth? In that moment of chilling realization, she knew the time for hiding was over, and the hunt had only begun. The darkness pressed in around her like a vice, suffocating. Every heartbeat echoed in Sarah's ears as she felt herself being enveloped by the shadows. She could no longer distinguish reality from nightmare. The walls seemed to pulse, alive with the whispers of the past, and the shadows danced eagerly as if mocking her fear. "Find me!" The voice coiled around her, both a command and a plea. It resonated deep within her, sending icy fingers of dread creeping down her spine. How could she possibly find truth in this abyss? What would it demand of her? A soft rustle drew her attention, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. She turned swiftly, searching the corners of the room shrouded in darkness. A fleeting silhouette shimmered and disappeared. The air crackled with tension, filling her with urgency. "I can't stay here," she muttered, and yet her feet remained rooted, planted as if by invisible chains. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. A gust of chilling wind swept through the space, extinguishing what little warmth lingered in her skin. "You must confront the echoes of your past," the voice urged, weaving through the air like smoke. "It's the only way to break the curse." Fighting against the oppressive fear tightening around her, Sarah took a tentative step forward. The floorboards creaked ominously in protest. The shadows ahead quivered, darkening further, drawing her closer to the unknown. If she was going to find the truth, she had to willingly step into the heart of the darkness. Steeling her resolve, she called out, "Show me what I need to see." With her voice echoing in the haunting silence, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows recoiled, then surged forward like a black tide flooding the room. Just then, images exploded into view, blinding and chaotic, like shards of broken glass reflecting a soulless torment at a house. Her house. It stood proud once, drenched in warm sunlight. But memories flickered, unraveling into screams and chaos. A woman, the same haunting figure, her face twisted in pain. Was that her mother? The realization hit her like a punch. Running figures, cries of distress, a shattering moment when the world turned dark. "Sarah." It was never just a memory. The voice broke through, sorrowful yet commanding. "It's a warning." Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. These were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't yet comprehend. She felt herself slipping further into the vision, a chilling feeling engulfed her. The woman's gaze locked onto hers, pleading through the veil of memory. "You must do what I couldn't." The scene warped around her again, morphing into a chilling tableau. A blood-stained baby crib, its sheets torn in two still. Shadows lurked in every corner, twisting and coiling like serpents, ready to strike. "No!" Sarah screamed, and as the cry ripped through her, she abruptly sensed a surge of power. For a brief moment, she felt compelled, fueled by anger mixed with sorrow. This was no longer about fear. This was about vengeance. Then silence fell. The images faded, leaving Sarah standing alone, her heart racing. "You think you can escape?" The voice taunted, its mellifluous tone a chilling reminder of her entrapment. "The truth must be paid for in blood." Panic clawed at her throat. "What do you mean?" Sarah shouted, rage igniting her fear. The walls seemed to close in, crushing her with the weight of destiny. Suddenly, a flash of light burst forth, illuminating a door that had never existed before. It beckoned to her, its brilliance contrasting sharply with the encroaching darkness. Yet within that light a dread lingered. What lay beyond it? Taking a shaky breath, she stepped towards the door. But just as her hand reached for the handle, an icy grip clamped around her wrist. It tightened, relentlessly pulling her back into the torment, back into the darkness. "Find me" echoed around her once more, this time laced with sinister laughter. Sarah's heart raced as shadows surged forward. The air thickened, suffocating. The door had vanished, leaving her face to face with her nightmares. What awaited her? Would she confront the darkness or become part of it forever? As the shadows lunged, a chilling thought flickered in her mind. The answer was closer than she thought, and it demanded a price. With that realization looming heavy over her, she braced herself for what came next, knowing she had not just the past to fight against, but something more sinister, something that had waited for this moment for far too long. Nothing felt solid anymore. As the icy grip around Sarah's wrist tightened, she gasped for breath, her chest heaving with panic. The darkness around her pulsed with malicious intent, alive and hungry, suffocating her will to fight. "Find me!" The voice boomed again, reverberating in her skull like a death knell. The shadows melted into a black whirlpool at her feet, urging her to succumb. Desperation ignited in her veins. Reflecting back on that blood-stained crib, she roared, "I won't let you take me." With a surge of adrenaline, she yanked her wrist free from the icy hands of despair. Yet, the relief was fleeting. The world spun violently as new visions materialized. Flickering lights revealed a childhood bedroom, dust motes swirling like tiny specters in a beam. Sarah squinted against the brightness, her heart sinking at the sight of her younger self laughing atop the bed, blissfully unaware, surrounded by stuffed animals. But the walls started to bleed, oozing memories of a darker hue. Her laughter morphed into screams as shadows poured in through the cracks. Abruptly, the happy scene shattered like glass, replaced by visions of towering figures enveloping her mother, their faces twisted like grotesque masks. "Help her!" young Sarah cried, but her voice was a mere whisper lost in the cacophony of sorrow. The flicker in the light dimmed, and the shadows lunged, grasping at her waist, her legs. Cold whispers slithered into her ears. "It's your fault, you should have saved her." The words slashed through her resolve, an icy touch spreading through her spine. "No," she fought back, twisting and turning, seeking an escape amid the chaos. Every movement felt like wading through molasses. The shadows carried their malice. She stumbled and fell onto the ground, the sound echoing like a death sentence. Laughter erupted around her, cruel and mocking. "You can't run from the truth, Sarah," it hissed, with the voice ringing in her mind. Something else broke through the obscurity, an image of a key, a glint of metal buried in the corner of her memory. "The attic!" she gasped, recognition surging within her. It was where her mother had kept the secrets, the things buried deep that she had never allowed in the light. Using every ounce of energy, she clawed her way toward the shadows that twisted like smoke, shrouding the doorway leading to the attic. The oppressive air seemed to thicken with every step, the laughter morphing into rage, echoing dismay. A flicker of light sparked in her chest. This was her moment. Her legs pushed against the floor, urging her forward. "I'll find you," she shouted, her voice carrying a strength she didn't know she possessed. Her fingers brushed against the door, slick and worn, and with a burst of willpower she shoved it open. Light flooded her senses, dispelling the darkness momentarily. Before her lay the attic, cloaked in swirling dust. Shadows loomed, but they were dulled. An old trunk sat in the center, her mother's trunk. "Open it," the voice whispered faintly, now laced with a hint of urgency, maybe even desperation. The shadows clung to her, but she focused hard, heart pounding, remembering warmth and safety rather than fear. "I'm done hiding," she declared, determination flooding her system. As she approached the trunk, the atmosphere shifted, electric, charged, swirling with potential answers. She felt the weight of years pressing down on her shoulders, a mountain of secrets waiting to be unleashed. With trembling hands, she gripped the latch, preparing to unveil whatever lay hidden inside. Would she confront the truth that wanted to consume her? Or would the darkness reclaim her once more? As the trunk creaked open, a cold wind whirled around her. The laughter began again, now faster, more frantic. "You've chosen your path, Sarah. Welcome to your end." What awaited her beneath the layer of dust and despair? Would the answers liberate her or plunge her deeper into the madness? The darkness could feel her moment of hesitance. She took a breath, and with it the knowledge that everything was about to change forever. The trunk creaked louder, a mournful sound, as if it were protesting against being opened. Sarah hesitated, her breath slowing, heart thudding against her ribcage like a warning drum. The laughter erupted again. It echoed around her, mingling with her mounting dread. Gnawing at her mind with a final surge of courage, she flung the trunk lid wide open. Dust flew into the light, swirling around her like trapped spirits. Inside lay scattered bits of her past, tattered letters, faded photographs, and a frayed blanket that smelled of mildew and sorrow. But the most unsettling sight sat at the bottom. A small box locked tight. Its surface glimmered menacingly, reflecting the light in a way that sent chills down her spine. "Find the key," the voice urged, laden with anticipation. Panting, she dug through the remnants of her childhood. Her fingers curled around the frayed edges of a letter, shaking as she read words that twisted like knives. "They're coming for you, don't trust anyone," panic surged. Her mother had tried to warn her. The shadows coiled tighter, their whispers pulling her closer to madness. "Open it," they hissed, a chorus of malice woven with twisted excitement. Heart racing, Sarah struggled against increasing despair. She needed the key, it had to be here. She felt an icy stab of certainty. Where would her mother hide it? The attic was always filled with secrets. Suddenly, a glint caught her eye from the corner, a dirty little metallic glimmer among old toys. A key. Her breath caught as she snatched it up, the coldness biting her skin. She could feel the darkness shifting, growing impatient around her. With trembling hands, she approached the small box, heart hammering. The lock looked ancient, almost obscene in its grotesque design. As she pushed the key in, she felt the shadows around her pulse with greed. "Let it be," a despairing voice echoed, urging her to stop. But she steeled herself. "No more. I'll learn the truth." The box clicked open, a thick cloud of musty air spilling out. Inside lay something that looked innocuous, a mirror, small and tarnished. But the moment she lifted it, an unnatural force of cold radiated from it, and the laughter transformed into howls. "What is this?" she gasped, eyes wide in horror. The reflection stared back at her. Not her face but a twisted version, eyes hollow, lips cracked in a rictus smile. A shadow loomed behind her in the mirror, an otherworldly wraith that made her blood run cold. It reached out, and Sarah felt the sting of its cold fingers against her skin, freezing her in place. "Witness your legacy," it breathed, the voice no longer a whisper but a deafening roar. Sarah stumbled back, dropping the mirror. It shattered, sending fragments shooting in every direction. Each piece reflected worse fears, memories she'd buried deep. A montage of her life, guilt flashing bright in dozens of shards. Moments of failure, of sorrow, of anger. "Stop, please," she yelled, dropping to her knees, feeling the weight of her past crushing down. But something new emerged from the shards, crawling forth, a shadow with no distinct shape, just dark swirling tendrils that seemed to absorb the light. It floated closer, almost inspecting her with a curious malice. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs felt like lead. The entity inhaled deeply, and in that moment she understood. It wasn't a curse, it was malevolence feeding off her fears. "You cannot escape who you are," it murmured, its voice slithering into her thoughts. Sarah locked her gaze onto the fragments of her shattered life. Each piece glowed with a dark promise, and she realized the truth. The mirror didn't just show her reflection, it held her very essence. "What if I embrace it?" she thought, her heart pounding. Suddenly an overwhelming rush of rage coursed through her. "I will not be your vessel," she yelled, ready to lash out at the darkness surrounding her. But as she drew breath, the whispers crescendoed into a chaotic frenzy. Could she fight the shadows, her shadows? The question hung thick in the air. What had she just awakened? The darkness rippled as if considering her response. What would she do now, with the truth laid bare and a choice looming before her? The shadows pulsed like a living thing, swirling around Sarah, igniting her instinct to flee. Yet, her feet remained glued to the floor, indecision raging in her chest. What if the darkness outside had grown too familiar, too welcoming? "What do you want from me?" she shouted into the suffocating void, desperation creeping into her voice. "Only what you deny," the entity whispered, a distant echo, phantoms wailing in agreement. In her heart, fear wrestled with anger. She thought about the years of neglect, about the chilling nightmares that ripped her from sleep. She looked back to the shards, her past laid bare like a grotesque banquet she couldn't bear to taste. A sharp crack broke through the whispers, jarring her senses. The light flickered ominously, dimming as if the house held its breath. She scanned the room, every corner littered with remnants of her forgotten self. Then she remembered. Mom, she murmured, guilt slicing through her like a knife. Her mother had tried to shield her from this place, from the darkness. But had she known how deep it went? Before she could linger in that thought, the shadows clustered around her, embracing her like a cold blanket. The whispers grew unnaturally loud, a profound cacophony of dread, each voice screaming her darkest secrets, her greatest failures. She pressed her palms against her ears, the overwhelming noise drowning her sanity. Suddenly, one particularly sharp voice broke through, distinct and heavy. "You can't run forever," it taunted, laden with a sickening sense of glee. "Face it. You are the darkness." The swirling shadow morphed, taking the form of a familiar figure. A twisted version of her mother stood before her, lips curling in a wicked smile, hollow eyes piercing her soul. "Mom?" Sarah's voice trembled. "No," the shadow screeched, lunging forward, its fingers elongated and sharp. "I am what you made of her. I am the regret you bury deep." Panic clawed at Sarah's chest. "I didn't," but the entity advanced, words spilling from its lipless mouth like poison. "You turned away. You left her in the dark. You don't know me," she screamed, pushing back against the waves of despair, a flickering light igniting within her. Each step, each heartbeat, throbbed with the decision: fight or submit. Sarah inhaled deeply, the musty air overwhelming but somehow igniting her courage. "You're lying." For a moment the entity faltered, the shadows wavered as if caught off guard. Fueled by what little defiance she had left, she thrust her hands towards the dark figure. "You will not take her from me." The energy rippled outward, breaking through the darkness like a storm. The shadows recoiled, twisting in agony. Yet, she felt the weight of their fury pressing against her, trying to pull her back into despair. "Embrace us," they hissed, seductive whispers curling around her thoughts. "We can give you power, make you stronger, beautiful." A chill ran down her spine. What would it mean to embrace that darkness? The temptation gnawed at her resolve, the offer seductive in its promise. "No," she gasped, forcing the words out. "You're lying." Each syllable was laced with determination and dread. In an overwhelming moment of clarity, she recalled the warmth of human contact, the fragile beauty of love and trust. "I choose life," she declared, and the words echoed back at her, defying the shadows. The trembling grew violent, shaking the walls around her. Cracks formed in the darkness, light spilling into the corners, ripping the entity's form asunder. But just as victory flickered into reach, the ground shuddered beneath her, and she felt the air heavy with an ice-cold resolve. Not yet, the echoes roared, shaking her very core. Then, she saw it, a figure standing in the doorway beyond the attic's threshold. A familiar silhouette, still and watching. "Sarah," it whispered, voice drenched in sorrow. "Mom!" she cried, feeling a surge of hope despite the chaos. Was her mother truly here to save her? But as shadows flickered around the figure, Sarah felt the air grow thick with uncertainty. What awaited her in the light? With terror tightening its grip, she was left with one last question. Would embracing the truth be the salvation she desperately sought, or would it plunge her deeper into darkness? The decision loomed, greater than herself. As the darkness whispered its threats and promises, Sarah's heart raced wildly in her chest. She felt her mother's presence existing within the shadows, trapped yet steady. "I choose life," she shouted, spilling determination into the heavy air. And suddenly it all began to shift. The shadows recoiled, their malevolence faltering as if they were alive, growing weaker in the face of her defiance. "Mom!" The figure seemed to shimmer in and out, a faint outline of the mother she had lost so long ago. Hope pushed against despair, forcing Sarah to focus. "You're my light," she called, desperate for a connection, desperate for help. The entangled shadows darkened around her, angrier now, while flickers of glowing light began to seep through the cracks in the house. "Together," the voice pleaded, a mixture of shadow and sweetness. Sarah allowed a nervous smile to inch across her face. This was not a darkness without heart. It was the very thing her mother tried to shield her from. An echo of the past snaking through present time, countless fears mingling. "Help me break the curse," she said, determination infiltrating her voice. "I want to lose you again." But the shadows clawed at her resolve, scratching deep. You'll never escape who you are. They hissed, growing almost desperate now like a pack cornered. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, her anger boiling at the reminders to her painful truth. She clenched her fists, determined. This wasn't just a battle to save herself, it was about saving her mother from the same void she once fell into. Together, she called, and with that plea, the memories of warmth and laughter washed over her. Images of a sunlit backyard, her mother brimming with joy, burst forth. The forgotten comfort stirred the air, filling the room with a glow that began to drown the encroaching shadows. The shadows quaked and Sarah felt them recoil, the whispers now tinged with fear. No, you can't, but Sarah stepped forward, guided by the force of love and remembrance. I want the truth, she shouted, throwing her arms wide as if to embrace the light she had summoned. I won't let you take her from me anymore. Suddenly the light burst forth, illuminating every corner of the attic, blasting through the shadows and revealing the truth. Memories displayed like paintings in a gallery. Visions of laughter gave way to battles, to horrible truths of pain and loss. But they didn't crush her spirit. They fortified it. She felt her mother beside her, the warmth growing inside her as if they were two forces colliding against the darkness, becoming one. Light enveloped every inch of the attic. The oppressive air shattered, and with an anguished roar, the shadows unraveled, breaking apart like the remnants of a nightmare. This can't be, they cried, thrashing and twisting before disintegrating into nothingness, leaving silence in their wake. Sarah, you did it. A voice echoed gently, resonating through her. She turned, the light now revealing her mother shimmering whole. The silhouette had transformed into flesh and warmth, vibrant and full of the love Sarah had longed for all her life. They rushed into each other's arms, warmth pooling and merging until every tear felt wiped clean. You saved me, her mother said. And yourself. With each embrace, Sarah felt the weight of her childhood melt away. Every struggle, every misstep set free. She was no longer defined by the shadows that haunted her. As they pulled back, their eyes connected, and Sarah noticed the depth in her mother's gaze. The untold secrets now dissipated like mist. You must live on now, Sarah. Never forget that love conquers even the darkest chapters. With a soft touch, her mother started to fade. Yet Sarah felt the imprinted warmth of her spirit entwining with hers, binding them beyond the borders of all she feared. In that moment she knew, the past was behind her, but the legacy of love would be her blueprint for life. The attic closed around her, the wood creaking softly. Stepping back into her living room, the new light remained, the air filled with clarity and relief. The house felt different, lighter. The whispers of malice silenced, only echoes of happiness left behind. She would rebuild. Being free, she stepped from the shadows into a world anew, filled with whispers of laughter, the bittersweet promise of hope echoing in her heart. Her journey of fear was over. But her journey of healing had just begun. If you've ever fancied the terrifying or soothing effects of shadows, now is the time for your interactions. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. You need to subscribe now. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the content you love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.